With everything going on in the world today, Kent, it seems to be important to be able to develop a toolkit for managing stress and anxiety that's being thrown at us every day. What would a toolkit look like to you?
The toolkit that I've been referring to is just entitled Beyond Yoga. We all know what the important things are to do: uh, rest, sleep, meditation, exercise, monitor our use of substances, have important connections with others. We all know those are useful things to do. But the toolkit Beyond Yoga involves a comprehensive plan that has three interrelated components. And those three components are perspective taking, understanding what anxiety is, and defining a self in relationship to the anxiety. Perspective taking, it involves the intellectual system, and the intellectual system is about rational, objective thoughts. And I've identified three perspectives that I think is important for people to consider. The first one is just on the ground. How am I navigating myself on a daily basis? Am I assessing risk accurately? Am I understanding what my risk tolerance is? And hopefully I'm using a thoughtful thinking perspective when I'm managing myself on the ground. And we all are engaged in that on a daily basis, and it's easy to see with COVID. The 5280 perspective has to do with the Colorado community, the Metro Denver area. Since I live in Denver, that's why I refer to it as the 5280 perspective. What is our community learning? What is it gaining? What are the pluses that we can take away from all the challenges that we're experiencing now, from COVID to Black Lives Matter to the economy to the political situation? And then the 32,000 foot view just has to do with what's the perspective at the international, at the global level? What are we learning about climate change? What are we learning about how to manage a pandemic? Hopefully there's a lot of things that we can learn and gain from, even though we're going through challenging times.
Can you define anxiety more for me?
I just think life is an anxiety machine. It's a given. And it comes from our brain's stress response system in response to what we're experiencing in our lives. And anxiety comes in two forms: acute anxiety and chronic anxiety. It's really important that we use our critical thinking skills and our defined self to manage and reduce that anxiety. I think that acute anxiety involves the assessing both the real or the perceived threats that are immediately present, and then developing and implementing a plan to address those threats. There's a whole threat assessment protocol to learn, which people will do in the Defining Leadership program. Chronic anxiety, on the other hand, is really about others and our worry about what they think or feel about who we are or what we're doing. For example, do they like us? Are they mad at us? Are we with them or against them? Do they approve of us? Are we accepted by them? This is where defining a self comes in. And when one does this thoughtfully and represents a well-defined self to others, then chronic anxiety will reduce. For example, wearing a mask. Am I going to wear a mask? Yes, I'm going to wear a mask. Am I concerned about what other people think? Sometimes I have been. Other times I haven't been. But I know that I'm going to continue wearing a mask because that's part of my well-defined self based on science.
So, like you mentioned, it can be really difficult to take a stand on some of these hot social issues, COVID-19 being one, Black Lives Matter, diversity, inclusion, and equity, the upcoming election, even. How would one go about formulating a position, taking a stand on some of these things?
In the Defining Leadership program, we've created MyOS, which stands for My Operating System. And it's a project designed to help a person define a solid self. It's a person's navigation system. In other words, it's your North Star. Participants will identify who they are, what they will do, what they won't do, and most importantly, they will be evaluating who they are through the 7 components that make up my operating system. They'll be using objective thinking and reflection as they develop their components. It's essential to identify what informs our purposes, values, beliefs, principles, and plans, to identify where they come from. Did they come from our family? Did they come from other people? Did they come from our teachers? Perhaps the religion that we grew up with, or the one that we practice now, if at all. Politics and science. For example, what attitudes and beliefs and facts have we used in the past to identify who we are, what we'll do and what we won't do, with or without the use and the aid of a verification system. For example, I believe that Black Lives Matter. I believe that there's evidence of worldwide systemic racism. I believe that COVID is a virus. I believe that science will get us through to the other side, and we have to be patient with science. Science is about learning and discovering through a process of sorting out the facts.
So that certainly seems important in our personal life. How would you extrapolate that to our professional life as well?
I think it's important for both individuals and leaders to develop their operating system, MyOS, and I think it's important for the business or organization to do the very same, for them to create their own operating system. And then hopefully the leader's operational system and the organizational's operating system are compatible and congruent with each other. I think that will foster a lot of cooperation and collaboration between the people in the organization and the leader and what the organization is trying to accomplish.